everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's InsideAgameR. Welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 with my tutorial series, and today we're going to be taking the A32nx by fly-by-wire. With all the latest updates, I thought we'd do another cold and dark startup, full MCDU, as well as simbrief and a little bit of navigraph, just to show you how I make my flight plans and what I do. And obviously, since the last one I done, there have been a lot of changes to the mod as well. So look, let's get straight into it. As you can see there, we got right in front of us, we're here at Gatwick. We're going to do a flight plan from Gatwick to Edinburgh. We got the lovely InsideAgameR livery, the channel livery, which is looking pretty sweet. And what we're going to start with today is actually simbrief. Okay, so before we do anything, we need to have a look at our flight plan for the day. And what we're going to do, I'm just going to bring the flight plan across here to simbrief. So what you need to do is log into simbrief. If you haven't got this, this is a free piece of kit. It's a very, very handy tool for any person that uses any kind of flight simulator. And what you need to do once you've logged in, you're going to go down to your dispatch and dispatch system. It'll come up here, you can log in, and then what you need to do is create a new flight. Now this is the great thing about this. So airline, we are AIG, that is the code for Simply Connect, which is my virtual airlines. We can just put in any number here. At the moment it doesn't matter, we do have flight numbers on our charts and stuff, but you know, that's fine. Okay, so we're departing EGKK, which is Gatwick, and we're going to be going to EGPH. Now that's going to pretty much fill in everything automatically for us. We don't have to do too much. We can change the date and the time if we wish, but what we do need to do is pick your aircraft. So depending on what aircraft you're flying with, what simulator you might be using, but obviously we're going to be taking the A320, so that's what we're going to pick in. And here you go, it's given us a flight time of 1 hour 30. We're departing 26 left, so we're going to take note of that because that's important. And we're going to be arriving at 24. Okay, perfect. Taxi time's about 20 minutes out, 8 minutes in. Okay, just say no extra fuels, cargoes and stuff are automatic for 0 fuel weights. That's great. And now here we go, we've got the important part. This is our route. This is what we're going to have to put into the MacDo in a minute once we get back into the flight deck. So what I tend to do, because I don't like reading off the two screens, I tend to write that down just in front of me. I find it easier to type it into the simulator, but whatever works for you guys, you can have it on separate screens, but I just write it down. I just find it a little bit easier. Some people do print these off. That's completely up to you. Okay, once you've taken note of that, or however you want to do it, you can go down and you can see the flight plan itself here. So this is the route that's going to take us out of EGKK, around London, up straight across through the country into Edinburgh. Okay, so for a lot of people that is enough. Once you've kind of got that information down, all you need to do is generate an OFP. Now you can save this and import this into Microsoft Flight Simulator directly, or you can do the MacDo. You can do it either way. Obviously I'm going to teach you how to fill in the MacDo on this episode. I have done a previous simbrief video there in the tutorial series on how to load these directly into Microsoft Flight Simulator. But here we go, it's going to give you all your details again. So we know block fuel 707. That's fine, 0 fuel weight, so we can keep an eye on all them in a minute. They're not drastically important right this second, and you can still see the flight plan. So then what I tend to do next is I use navigraphs for my charts. Now I'm going to bring over navigraphs to the page now, and you can see this is my flight plan to Innisbrook the other night because it just loads the last one you used. So we're going to go up here to flights. Now this is a payware tool, but this is highly recommended, especially when AirX cycles get involved into Microsoft Flight Simulator. You will need this to update the MacDos, and obviously I use it on X-Plane, so it's worthwhile. Okay, so what we're going to do is click on new flight, and we can now import this directly from simbrief, and you can see it's going to bring up my latest simbrief, which is EGKK to EGPH. And there we go, there is the route. And now you can see it's got a couple of dots here because it's missing our approaches and stuff, because we can play with this. So even though simbrief's giving me a flight, if I don't like what it's doing with me, I can change this, and then I know what I'm going to put into the simulator. This is the handy part of all of this. Okay, so it did say that we were leaving 26 left, which it has put here, and our departure today is the LAM 6. If you remember from the other page there a second ago, we just wrote it down. LAM 6 was our first part here of our SIDS and stars. So we've got our LAM 6, and then we have our InPip 1E. So okay, we're happy with that because that is the departure that simbrief gave us. Okay, so yeah, we're fine. I'm happy with that. I'm going to go up the route. Don't need to change any of these waypoints. I think they're all pretty good. It's when we get up to here now. So we're going to see our arrivals in P1E. Okay, so that is our arrival. So this is it. This is our star. Okay, so after the start, we need to now sort out our approach. So we can pick which runway we're going into. Now we know that we are going into 24, so it'd be nice to get an ILS 24. I always try and aim for the ILS, if not on RNAV. I don't really worry about these ones too much. So you can see there's a drop-down box. We can pick our transition of EDN, TLA, and final. Now we'll just take final, and as you can see here, there is a dotted line, but that's okay because the flight plan's going to pick that up and get final into here. Now there are some other options. You can have a look. So if we had a look at TLA, you can see what it'll do here. It will connect on and bring you in. But for me, I kind of just go for final. It's a lot simpler, straight in and around. Okay, so I know that this flight plan is going to work. I'm quite happy with that flight plan. I can see what I'm doing. Other features with the navigraph, of course, is, say if I'm coming in on the InPI1E, which is what we're going to be doing, I can now generate my charts and stuff, which is really good. So what we can do now is go chart overlay, and you can see this is where we're going to come in, is from the inpip. So you can see where it's going to bring us in here. So this is kind of handy to have these. So what I do, I pin them. Also, as I come in actually into it, we can open the charts at the airport as well for our taxiing, so I can see what the airport looks like. I can pin this, so I know that we're coming in on 24. Boom. And then we'll have to taxi back. Now, to be honest with you, probably 6 would be better, but look, that's what simbrief gave us. But if I wanted to change that now and make my route that I come into 6, I can do that. I don't have to listen to the simbrief exactly. And now I can change simbrief to 6, because, you know, if you land, you know, you're going to come straight in and park up. But it's okay. You know, that's what they've given us, so I'm okay with that. So you can play with these to whatever suits you. So what I do, yeah, and again, with Gatwick, I'd always kind of make sure I go into my airport, open my charts, I go to my taxi. Even if it's just parking stands, you know, with the bigger airports you can get a lot more stuff. Takeoff minimums, this is what we want. So currently this is where we are. Navigraph picks up where we are, so this is pretty handy. It's good for taxiing. I've done a taxiing tutorial before as well. And we know that we're going from 26 left, so we're just going to literally pull out of here and boom, off we go. We'll do our circle, etc. So I'll pin that as well in case I need that. Very handy stuff to have. Okay, so we can actually get into the flight simulator now. Now we're back at the flight simulator. Here we are. We're in the airport of Gatwick. This is the freeway of Gatwick. This is the one of my favorite airports. It's probably one of the best freeway airports you can get currently. It is looking pretty damn good, hence why I chose it. So, virtual airlines as well. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But what we need to do first is just get into the cockpit. And here we are. We're on the flight deck now, and we're going to go through now the procedures. Now, I just want to point out I'm not a professional pilot, because I do get a lot of sticks sometimes on these videos. I play these games for fun. I've been flight simming for a long time. I might not do everything in the exact order, okay? But what I will show you is an easy understanding of getting yourself up in the air, making your own flight plans, and having a bit of fun. Later on down the line, you can go in a little bit more in depth and learn a little bit more about the systems if you wish. So what we start with, we need to look up above here. So in this panel here, this is where people, you know, with the Airbus, I actually find this the easiest. The Boeings are a little bit more hard work, not on this game, but on X-Plane definitely. So what you're going to do first is very simple. You're going to throw on your batteries. And then you're going to hear the bing, and you're going to throw on your external power. So now we have power coming into the aircraft. You can hear everything kind of lighting up. You're going to hear all the fans coming on. What we want to do next is ADIRS. This will line up your navigational equipment. Now, fly-by-wire have now introduced an instant activation of this, which is good. Otherwise, if you want to do it more realistically, it will take 7 minutes. Now, I will let you know that I have it on instant just for the tutorial, so we're not waiting 7 minutes. But by the time you've done all your flight plan and stuff, the 7 minutes is nearly up. So you can leave it on normal. It's completely fine. Okay, we're going to turn on the crew supply here. We're also going to put the emergency lighting to arm. You see it's going to change that. And you will change your smoking and your seatbelt signs to on. Smoking is on auto. That's fine. At this point, you can just flick on your fuel pumps as well, so you don't forget to do them. And you can turn up your heat in the cabins to medium. So as the passengers get on, they're going to stay nice and warm and cozy. There we go. Now, you can test your engine fire suppressions as well. You get a few beeps from them. Oh, you're not supposed to lift it up like I just done. And that's good. There we go. We can just get it down. Okay, so for this top panel, we're done for the minute. We're absolutely done. And we can come down below. As you can see, I already have mine auto aligned, but obviously that would come up, it would say here you have 7 minutes, but that's fine. So what I tend to do now is I'll turn up all my brightness on these dials here, just especially when I'm streaming, because sometimes it can be a bit hard for you guys to see. I even turn up these lighting dials just to make sure that, you know, they stay nice and bright. We're going to come down here. We've got some more floodlights down here if you need them. Oh, handy when you don't miss it when you're zooming. And again down here, these will brighten these ones up. And for the MacDo, you can see the brightness and the other switch just there. Okay, so at this point, you know, this is when we would have a look at the MacDo. And here we go, here it is. Nice and simple. Okay, so if you don't have the things aligned, you'll press this. You know, the navigational software is okay. The AirX cycle is up to date, which is fine. So what we're going to do is start on the init page. The init page is where we're going to start, and we're going to be starting from... So we're going to be starting with EGKK, which is Gatwick, and you need to put your little dash in, because you can see here it has the dash. And our airport that we are going to is EGPH. EGPH. And all you're going to do now is throw that into here. You will get sometimes another screen. If there's none, just press return. That is absolutely fine. As you can see there, it's now put something in for you, and we got some new little options. Okay, the flight number, AI252, whatever your flight number is of the day, you can just input that, whatever it is. So for me, it would be IAG, say, 258. Okay, and we can input that there. If you have an alternative route, you can throw in your alternative route. Say if, I don't know what the alternative is, I didn't look on the simbrief, but, you know, say if it was Manchester, EGCC, you could throw that in there if you wanted to. Up to you. That would not be realistic, that's too far away. It'd probably be Glasgow. But anyways, you get that off simbrief. But actually, maybe we should just do that as we're doing this properly. Let's bring up simbrief. And simbrief is showing our alternative is EGQS, which is probably... Oh wow, it's an absolute mission away. I'm surprised it wasn't Glasgow. Okay, so EGQS is our alternative. So yeah, we'll just throw that in properly. Okay, cost index and stuff. Again, we need to go back to our simbrief. And there's a few little bits of information that we need to take from that. Okay, as we go down here, this is the important kind of information on your simbrief once you've generated your OPF. And the first thing we're going to look at here is our estimated tow weights is fine, yep. But the cost index is 14. So our cost index state is 14. Average winds of 225 of 056. Okay, that's fine. And then we can also look down here. You can see that our fuel, block fuel, is 5707. Now I always put a little bit extra in because things always go wrong, and if you have to go around and stuff, just to make sure. Nothing worse than running out of fuel on stream. Okay, so what we need from here now is the cost index, which is up here, which is 14, and we know that our block fuel is 57. So what I'll do, I'll round it up to 58 probably. Okay, so our cost index today is 14. We're going to throw that in there. And our cruising altitude, now this is completely up to you. You can follow the simbrief. It put us up to 37,000. We don't need to go that high. I don't tend to use the ATC on the game. I tend to use Pipe to ATC, so I can put in my own flight level. And you know, for me, I think 310, that's 31,000 feet, is perfectly fine for this flight, and it'll fill that in for you. Again, if you're doing the IRS for the alignment, because we're already realigned, I don't have to do anything in here, but you would have to press that if you're waiting for the 7 minutes, etc. Okay, so what I do, I tend to go onto the init B page next. Now some people will tell you that's wrong, and that's fine, it is wrong. It's not quite the exact procedure that they would do. But we're going to go into it, and if you zero fuel weight in your block fuel, so if we just throw in our block fuel, which was 5.8 from simbrief, and then what we will then do is double tip this, and it's going to give us our zero fuel weights, etc. for the day, and that's fine. We're going to accept that. That is absolutely fine. Now make sure you fuel up your aircraft to your 5.8. You can do it up here through your fueling menu. Okay, so I've done my init B page. So what I now tend to do is go on to the flight plan, and as you can see here, we got our 2 points. We got where we're going, where we're coming from, and where we're going. And we're going to start with EGKK. We're going to press on departure, and we know that we were given 26 left, so we're going to come down here to find 26 left. We're going to click 26 left, and now we need to look for LAM 6M. Now we're going to press up and down here until you find it. So there's plenty of pages here. So the LAM 6M is here, which is perfectly fine. We know we want that, so we're going to click that, and we're just going to insert that into the flight plan. Now that's going to put in a load of waypoints, but that is actually going to be the start of the way plan, and you can see here it's going to do what we want it to do, which is fine. Okay, at the end of that one, the next waypoint was LAM. So what we need to now do is just go up and down until we find LAM. Here is LAM. So this was our next waypoint. We're going to click here. Now we've got a few options. Now we are joining an airway. Now if we're going to a waypoint, we're just throwing the waypoint here, but we are joining an airway. Now the airway, you'd know because the numbers are on there. It's usually like L10, which we've got next, or UN 577 and stuff like that. Waypoints generally are kind of like names like INPIP, LAM. So that's the difference. So we're going to click on airways here, and we know that the next airway is L10, which I just said, hence why I said it. And we'll just press L10, and it'll come up here, and we'll let it do its thing. And you'll know it's working because it's actually up here. If it didn't show, you know there might be a problem. So we are going to a waypoint next of BPK. BPK. Okay, it's accepted that, it likes that, it's fine. So the next one is an airway again to UN 601. UN 601. Throw that into your airway. And then we're going to go into INPIP. So INPIP. INPIP. And we're going to throw that in there. Wait for it to show. It shows. And that's fine because the next one now is our star. So that's our flight plan. It's a very simple flight plan today. And we can just insert that. And you can see it's going to automatically put it in. Now because the next one is our star, we're going to click on EGPH now. And we're going to click on our arrival. We're coming in on ILS 24. So we're going to click on ILS 24, and now it's going to give us our stars. So we're going to scroll up until we find what we want. We want the INP1E. We know that that's our star for today. And then here we go. Here's your transitions. We're not going to do any vires. Sometimes it says final. It's not saying final today. You can pick any of these as well if you wish. So I mean, like if, you know, for example, like I did say, TLA was there. Well, you know, EDN is already shown, but you know, we could take any of these. We'll take the TLA, say, and we can insert that into the flight plan. And what we're going to do now is actually check that this flight plan works. What we're going to do up here now, you need to come up to this part of the aircraft, and what you need to do now is change from arc to plan. And again, I would keep this around 10 or 20 so you can actually see the flight plan quite well. So I'm going to put it on 20, and as you can see, we can see that flight plan now. And if we remember through our navigraphs, here you go, you can see that we know we're looping around, we're going up and around, etc. So, you know, that's the kind of thing that we want to be seeing now. This is what we need to see on the aircraft. So if we just get rid of the navigraphs, and all we need to do is scroll up and down here with this flight plan open, and you can see it's going to start going through the waypoints. Okay, so look, that looks about right so far, it's looking good. And then we're going to see what our final approach is going to be doing once we get up there. ELA, there you go, so there's the transition in and around, all there's the waypoints into where we want to be going, which is Edinburgh. So look, that's a perfect flight plan, that works lovely. There you go, nice and simple, not too hard work. Okay, so then what we're going to do now, you'll just change this now back to arc, and you put this back down to 10 as you're on the ground. And what we want to do now is go back to this, because we're not finished with this yet. But there's the flight plan. The flight plan's done, don't touch it, don't need to do anything with it. We are happy. Okay, next thing I like to do is go into the radio navigation. ILS frequency is 108.9. Now the only way you're going to check this really, guys, now this is the only important part. You can put the course in and stuff as well if you want, but this is the important part, this frequency. Now this is why we use navigraphs. So if we come back to our navigraphs and we go across, we know that we're going to ILS runway 24, and I want to show that chart. So we know we're pretty much coming in around here. This is what we're actually coming in from. So this chart is very important. There's a few things we need here. First thing is the ILS DME. Here it is, 108.9. That is the ILS, and there's your course of 241. So that is the course the plane should be on the final, and 108.9. That is the most important part of this here. And there's a few other bits and pieces you can read off this chart. I don't want to go into the chart too much, but you know, you can get your ground services, your Edinburgh Towers, etc. But the other part is we need to look down here. So at DME D9.0, we need to be at 3,000 feet. So we can look at here. So 9.0, we know by this point here, we'd have to be down, if we're using ATC or not, we know that is where we're going to intercept the ILS. If we're not at that point or below, now this is a hard line, so you can't go any lower. But if we're not at this point, by this point, we're going to miss the glide slope and we'd have to perform a go around. Okay, and a few other little bits and pieces here. You know, this has got a Cat 3 ILS, which means you can land pretty much at any kind of weather system, and our DH is only 50. So that is our minimums. If you're using a Cat 2, it's only 200 for your minimums, and Cat 1, 300 for your minimums, which is nice. Okay, and so we know what lights are here. Now we've got the Hells and the Pappies, so we know what we're going to see. And if we do need to perform a go-around, we know we need to go straight up to 3,000 feet and perform our go-around, etc. So there's a few little bits of information off this chart. So what I will also do is pin this, so I know what I'm doing. As I'm getting close, I like to just double check my charts, because you know, you can never be too sure. Make sure you're down nice and early. As long as you're down at this point, you know, you're pretty happy to go. ATC will instruct you to be down there. Sometimes the ATC on this game doesn't get you down early enough. So in my mind, you know, like I said, I like to fly the ATC off, just kind of like my X-Plane, or I use Pilot to ATC or VATSIM, and they will get you down to these points where you need to be. So that's very important. So we know that 108.9 works and the course is 241. So 108.9 works, and we can put in the course of 241 if you wish. It's not the end of the world in this current form to have that in or not. But anyways, so what you're going to do now is go into your performance page. Now performance is pretty good. Some other simulators you'd have to calculate this yourself, or use different files to calculate, but all we need to do now, thanks to this mod, is just tap it. And it's going to tell you 127 is our V1, our VR, which is our rotational speed, is 128, and our V2 is pretty much our point of no return. There we go, 132. So 128 is our rotational for today. Now, a couple of other bits and pieces here. Flaps. Okay, so aircraft generally is a flaps 1 takeoff. Okay, now there are a few factors: weather, weight, and runway size. Okay, so there can be a few factors why you might do a flaps 2, but generally on this game, flaps 1 is more than enough to get you up in the air. Now flex the temperature, flex temp, unfortunately it doesn't fill it in for you. Now most aircrafts will flex temp, so a lot of people will toga take off, but you know, that's take off go round. But what I like to do is a manual flex, which is more realistic. Airbus pilots will manual flex because it does protect the engines, it makes them last longer, etc, etc. There's a lot to it. So generally the flex can be anything from, you know, 30 up to around 70. For me, what I worked out in this game was pretty good flex that will work pretty much at most runways, is around 65 to 70. So, you know, we'll go for a 68 flex. There is a way to work it out, but there's a lot of calculations involved. Now the good thing is, say if you fly the X-Plane, it does, the TOLIS works it out for you. So maybe that might be a feature that they will add, because 20 is way too low. You're not going to flex temp on 20. This might be a bit high for this runway, but either way, you know, it's better than doing the toga, I suppose. Okay, so that's the performance page done. As you can see, we can go into the next phase. You know, that's fine. The only phase we need to worry about is the approach phase. We need to have this all filled in while we're up in the air, but we're not going to worry about that just yet. Okay, for me, I'm quite happy with this flight plan now. I think it's all going to work. I'm quite happy with how it's all going to be. So what we're going to do now is throw it back onto the init page, and that's where I'm going to leave that. Okay, so now you'll be doing all your board, and you'll be talking to your, you know, your ATC. You'll be getting your clearances. You'll be getting your taxis, instructions, and stuff. So once you've got all that, I'm not going to show that with the ATC because, you know, we all know how that works. So what we're going to do next is actually look at what we now need to do for the aircraft. So the ATC might say to us, with our transitional altitudes, climb to 5,000 or 4,000. We'll give you more instructions later on, etc. And so whatever number they give you, you're going to throw in here. So say if, you know, I mean, transitional altitudes is normally around 5,000 in the UK. It does depend, so they might say 4,000, so I leave 4,000 in there. I know that this is going to manage it up to 4,000 feet until I give it more. They'd also give you a squawk. Say if your squawk was 3522, so you put in your squawk there, and then you make sure you turn your transponder onto TATI. There you go, so your TARA is on, and that's pretty good. Okay, so what we need to now do is go back up to the top panel. We now need to start thinking about turning this aircraft on. Okay, so what we're going to do here now at this point is, it's very, very simple. We're going to hit the APU. I like to look down, and what we're going to wait now is for this to say APU open, or, you know, flap open is what we're looking for here. Okay, now it says flap open. We're going to go back to the panel above, and we want to press APU start. And we're going to go back down now, and you're going to see the N and the exhaust here. They're going to change. You're going to hear it come up as well on the back of the aircraft. If we go to the outside, you know, you're going to start hearing the APU. The APU comes out the back here. Here's the exhaust for it. And you'll start hearing that kick in as it turns on. But again, we're just going to go back down here. We're going to wait for this now to get up and stabilize. Okay, so once that's stabilized, you're going to see here it now becomes available, and that's exactly what we want. We're going to throw on our APU bleed here because we're going to start bleeding for the engines. And what you will do here at this point is throw in your beacon, because we are going to be telling the ground crew that basically we are looking for pushback and engine start. It's kind of like a warning for them, I suppose. So once you've kind of got that available, we can now turn off the external power. And you can see that is now fine. What we would then do, we would tell our tower, look, we are ready for our pushback. And that's exactly what we're going to do here now. We're going to ask for our pushback. And you can see the tug is starting to move on the outside here. Fortunately, I'm in the corner of the building. There we go. So you can see the tug's now coming in. We have our beacon on. You can see the beacon, so the ground crew know now to start moving out of the way. Hopefully this will connect quite smoothly. Okay, so he's starting to push the aircraft back. That's fine. We can turn off that parking brake, but I'm going to wait 2 seconds here. So what I'm going to do now is turn the engine to ignition, and I'm going to flick engine 2, and I'm going to turn off that parking brake and just have a look on the outside. So engine 2 now will start turning over. Oh, the building's so annoying. So we know we're taxiing down here, so we're going to be pushed all the way back to about here. We can see that engine 2 is turning on at this point. Okay, engine 2, you can see it's now starting to stabilize. The numbers are starting to come down, which is fine. We'll now flick on engine 1, and that's going to start cranking over now as well. And from the outside here we can see that the engines are turning over nicely. And we'll stop our pushback there. It's not quite on the lines, not the tidiest, but there we go. So we'll put on, set our parking brake here. So what we're waiting for now, we're just waiting for the engines to stabilize. That's what we're looking at here. Okay, at this point now we can start thinking about our taxiing and stuff once the engine's on. Now APU, some people will turn it off now. It does come down to airlines as well. You know, I've spoken to some real world pilots in the Discord and stuff. Some of them turn it off just after takeoff. Doesn't really seem to be, you know, an issue. As long as you do it before you go above 5,000 feet seems to be the key. But what we're going to do here now is put it on our strobe to auto, turn on our runway lights and our taxi lights. So our taxi lights are now on. I'm just waiting for the engines to stabilize before I turn the APU off. Okay, so they've stabilized nicely. So what we're going to do here now is, yes, I'm going to turn off the bleed and just turn off the APU, because we're now running on the electrics from the engines, what they're generating. Okay, so we're back down here. So we've got a few other things we can do before we taxi. You know, this will give you a list, but we're completely fine. But one thing you'd want to check, if you just come down here, and what you want to then look at is flight controls. So here at this point in the flight controls, you will now just check your ailerons, your rudder, etc., your pitches and your trims. Make sure it's all working, which is pretty good. It is all working very, very nicely. We'll flick that onto the engines there for a second. It's no big deal what goes there. So what we're going to do now is that we're going to go taxi. And once we get down to the runway, I'm going to configure everything for takeoff. Now, some people might start configuring now, which you can do, I suppose. You know, we can throw our flaps to 1. We are going to be a flaps 1 takeoff. And you could arm your speed brake here as well if you wish. Okay, there's no harm in that. So what we're going to do, we're going to make our taxi. So we do need to turn off the parking brake. And we're going to make our it was already off. That was a key that I hit. Okay, so we're going to make our taxi. Keep it nice and slow and steady. This is a bit of a fast taxi already. Don't want it to be too fast. Okay, so we're right at the end of the runway, so we're just going to turn that corner. Okay. So what we're going to do while we're down here, I'm just going to set my parking brake again. So now we're going to go through our configurations. We'll be talking to ATC now, preparing for takeoff. We'll be trying to get our clearance for takeoff, and then in the meantime, we got a few things to now check. Okay, so we go back up above now. We can change the nose light now to takeoff. We can turn on our landing lights, and we can turn off our runway turning lights there. Throw on your wings and your navigations, and that is fine. Everything else is pretty good to go up here. Down below here, just a couple of last checks. What we want to do, we make sure we're on flaps 1. We're on flaps 1. Make sure we change the engine back just to normal. Speed brake is armed. And then what we're going to do over here is make sure you set your auto brake to maximum, obviously, as you are taking off. Check that what the ATC clearance gave us again one last time. We're going up to 4,000. We've got our 3 dots here, which means it's going to follow our flight plan nicely. We'll go get our clearance. So we just say now we just got our clearance. Okay, so we're good to go, guys. So we're going to take off the parking brake. I'm going to show the takeoff. And then what I'm going to do in another tutorial is that I'm going to show you the kind of cruise, descent, and into ILS landing. So we're just going to make our way up. Now we can have a bit of a rolling start here as we came down the very end of the runway there. That's why we stopped there to do our configurations. So we're all pretty good here for takeoff. Put the engines up to 50%. And then what we're waiting for now is the click for our flex. There we go. There is the flex. It should come up on the screen there. It doesn't always show for some reason on this mod. There you go. It has shown now. We're already reaching our V1 speeds. V1 and rotate. Not the tidiest to take off by myself. Gear up. And of course make sure you flick on your flight director, as that is what we're going to be following here. And as you can see, we're still in man flex. We're waiting until you see the we're going to go past the S here. Once we hit past the S, we will retract our flaps. Okay, flaps back. And we're now changing into thrust climb. Now you can manually fly this, or you can put it on the autopilot. I like to kind of manually fly out of the airports myself. It is completely up to you. So flaps are back, gears up at this point, and we're now following the flight director by hand, just to make sure we're getting where we need to be getting. Once it hits this pink dot, the aircraft will slow itself down. But what you can now do is just throw on the autopilot. So there we go, AP1 if you wanted. You could do that as soon as you take off if you're not happy with flying manually yet. That is fine. Okay, once we kind of reach that kind of 4,000 point, we will now start turning off our... going to standard pressures. Now my little screen has a thing there saying that the parking brake's on. I don't know why it was doing that. So there you go. Now what's going to happen here is the aircraft is going to fly by the MACD. So if we come down here, and if there are any... we're going to the flight plan. See, look, we can't go over 4,000 until we pass this point, and then it won't go above 5,000 until this point. After that, as you go down. So if there are restrictions, here we go. So there are quite a lot of restrictions. Obviously, we're going through London. Then it'll go up to 6,000. So this is going to do this all automatically until then we tell it to go up to where we want it to go. So, you know, I can easily have this set to say if 31,000 feet was our setting, and it will not go up to that point until it's gone out of the zones where it can fly. So the MACD knows what it wants to do. Let's have a look on the outside. Here we go, InsideAgameR's lovely livery here as we leave Gatwick, going through London. Nice, get a screenshot for the old Discord. And there we go, there we have it guys. There is your takeoff procedures, your cold start and your MACD. Now it's a little bit longer this video than I probably would have liked, but hopefully you guys will get a bit of a gist of what you need to do with the new update. So in the next video what I will do, I will show you the kind of descent, a bit more the autopilot features, and coming in for an ILS landing into Edinburgh. So we're going to continue with that same flight plan for sure. Now, just on a quick note before we finish, I do have a virtual airlines Simply Connect. I don't know if any of you have watched any of my videos before, so we do have a virtual airlines within my Discord. Simply Connect, we have all our own liveries. You can use any flight simulator you wish, and if you want to come fly with us, you are more than welcome. Come join the Discord, give me a bit of a shout, and I'll make sure I'll guide you in the right direction. Other than that guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will see you at the next one. Bye for now.